Welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, is my very good friend, Jim Stamm. Jim, how the hell are you, brother?
Gary, I am basking in the glow of a glorious Pitt win on Thursday night last week Pitt beat West Virginia.
We can have a full week of glow, can't we? I think that's fair.
So, right? We got Tennessee to worry about on Saturday. But anyways, so yeah, but what a game, what an atmosphere. It's great to see Pittsburgh just like shine like that and just jumping. So, and I'm sure you guys talked about it on the Hail to Pitt podcast too. So
absolutely, man. We had a great time. We even played, I think, a minute worth of Sweet Caroline just to rub it in. It was pretty great.
Yeah.
So, Jim, joining us today by popular demand and her own willingness that you were so kind to coax out of her when you ran into her at the stadium.
Yes.
Pirate Queen Banshee is with us today. So,
It'd
Queen,
be an honor
thanks
to
for
be
joining
here,
us.
Macy's. Thanks for having me.
We're super happy to have you aboard. This is going to be fun. And as the show goes on today, I think you'll find this isn't someone who just dresses like a pirate and unflinchingly roots for everything the Pirates do.
Nope.
She's a well-spoken, informed, and passionate fan, and we're going to give her plenty of room to put it on display for Pirates Nation today.
Not just another pirate face is what you're trying to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Oh no. I love me buccos, and they also make me mad. But they're my team.
If they don't make you mad, you're not paying attention.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
So the first thing I want to talk about today is just for total fun. Should the Pirates put together some sort of Rachel Phelps-inspired goal board for the finish of the season, Jim? This thing just seems like a ship without a rudder. Shouldn't there be some stakes in that locker room on how this season finishes?
For the three people out there who don't know what you're referring to, is
anyone under let's see, 20?
Yeah, you know what? That would be an interesting poll to see. Like big baseball fans, does that movie just transcend every major? We're talking about Major League, the movie, obviously.
Well, they'll remake it in 5 years, and it'll be about the Pirates instead of the
my goodness.
Guardians.
That would be that would be great and sad all at the same time.
Regardless, it's Major League. So what are your thoughts there, for real? Should there be some kind of a goal thing? You can go goofy with this or you can go serious with this. It's up to you.
Well, you know what? I'll just go serious with it. I would hope that there are some internal discussions about wanting, and I are you saying for like the rest of this year?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Like make this last month matter.
Yeah.
Make the goal whatever it takes to avoid 100 losses.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get there? Let's get it done.
Light some fire.
Right. So, what would be kind of cool is for me is to see like kind of like a dress rehearsal for the pieces that will be here, to let them play and let them compete and do it in a way that kind of feels like you're trying to, and ironically, we're playing a lot of teams that are in the postseason hunt. So almost treat it like the postseason in the sense of like you're going out and you're trying to win every game and you're making moves to beat these teams. And I mean, first of all, I think you have an obligation to do that for baseball, right? To keep the competitive standards where they need to be. And teams are depending on competition in these games. We shouldn't want to just lay down and let teams steamroll you at the end.
I mean, things like that should go without saying, of course.
Yeah, they should.
Right. But, so, Queen, I mean, what do you think about this? Do you want a Rachel Phelps board? Do you have an idea on how they should go about this?
Well, like I said, mine is more motivational torture. Because desperate times call for desperate measures. And if you want to go out with a bang, my solution would be the guys walk into the locker room and they see cardboard cutout of Bob Nutting in all his glory. Nothing.
uh,
If you want to stop seeing this, gotta win games. So
I
every
love
time they
it.
win, they get a little bit of
yeah.
that, that little cardboard piece of the business suit. Just eventually, you
You'd
won't
have
have
to
to look at it.
start. I mean,
So
you'd have to start with the business, right? You'd have to
Right.
cover the business first.
You gotta
That's what you'd have to go with first, and then the shirt. No
probably,
business suit. Let's
probably.
go with the shirt that says "Sell the team." Hashtag
Yeah,
sell the team.
that's.
I think that's perfect.
Oh,
I
oh,
love the idea of that.
I
I mean,
will
oh.
in
sell
That's
the
all
team.
sincerity, we talk about the team, and oh yeah, let's motivate them and whatnot. I understand too. The players aren't exactly where you want them to be.
mm-hmm.
So maybe is it more of an individual goal type thing where we're saying, okay, Brian, I want you to hit for more power the rest of this year, or
Oh,
Brian, I
it's
want
actually
you
really good.
to get on base more often.
You can mark off certain spots that they have to do on that cardboard cutout. Like that's exactly like Hayes has to do this, and so you have to, and that's their spot that they have to cover up.
You can get creative with the stuff, but in all
Mm-hmm.
sincerity, they should kind of get everybody together and formulate some kind of a real list of goals, right, Jim?
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe they have done that, but we'll never hear about it. I
No.
would just like to see the players look like they're rowing towards something right now. I
Last
feel
last
they're all
night,
so focused individually.
last
Yeah,
night
last
I
night's a good
liked
example.
last night looked. That was I was talking to my husband. I said last night I actually saw that they looked comfortable. And they looked like I didn't see second guessing. I don't know if it was because Keller was dealing. I don't know if it just everything seemed to be clicking on there. Usually, since we sit right by the third base line, I can see faces, I can see body language, and I just saw like they were so comfortable. It felt like you were going to win the game.
It's nice getting those glimpses, isn't it?
Yeah.
We
Oh,
don't get them in.
that's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I
To
mean,
be honest.
we don't get them enough. But that's, I think, Gary, what you're saying is like, how do we see a little bit more of that, whether it's team wise or individual wise down the stretch?
Yeah,
Um, you know,
get the most out of what you have, basically.
yeah,
You know,
and let
Marcano's struggling to hit right now.
yeah.
Get that kid to somehow get his OBA up. Draw more walks. Bunt more if you
I
have
was
to.
just gonna say
Slap the
bunt.
ball the other direction. Use your speed.
I'd love to see
You
more
know,
small
if you're
ball.
going to get on base as little as he is, steal when you get on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Marcano's got to push the action and start using his athleticism to show us something. And if
Yeah.
not, I have to ask questions like, why would I not prefer seeing G1 Bay? So there's a lot of things in there that I think these challenges kind of should have real repercussions, and that's something that I think they're missing. So we should probably take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about maybe what Derek Shelton can do. Welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Gary Morgan. We got Queen with us, and we got Jim. Next item on our agenda is Derek Shelton. He's a lightning rod. You know, it's hard to approach the last part of this season without talking about him. I mean, I think he needs evaluated just as much as the players do. We often hear how badly he's doing as a manager. But I suggest we go around the virtual room here and talk about what we do differently. Specifically, Queen, you're up first. One thing at a time here as we go round and round. Let's name one thing you do differently, and you know, what effect do you think it would have?
I'm going to start off by saying that I may be reading his management style wrong, but this is just how it comes off to me, is that he doesn't seem to coach from his gut. He seems to be very analytical, very by the book. the numbers. And so I would say for me is nuance. Baseball is not just a science.
Right.
So it's more of, I feel like he himself second guesses his choices a lot of times. That's what I feel. That's what I see. That's just my opinion. So I think differently is trust your gut more. And you don't have to constantly look at the numbers. Just because someone has, it's supposed to be off, you don't have to have them off. Just because they have to go in doesn't mean they should. Be a little more flexible.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think she's totally right, Jim. I also think that you and I, at least, both believe that's Charrington's call.
Yeah. There are things that are out of his control. But a lot of times it just feels like baseball's also an art, and it's an art and a science. And a lot of times you have to go with more than what's on paper, more than just what's in front of you.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah,
I think that's essential.
I think we see that too much around baseball, at least for my liking. You see a lot of things where you're just like,
what was that Joe Madden quote you threw me a while back? Remember about?
Well, yeah, he's actually talked about it quite a bit, I think, which is that it's part of the reason he's not really looking for any type of work right now, or if he was, it would be somewhere where he can manage, and make calls when he wants to, and trust his gut when he needs to. Now he's got his own detractors, and but I think it was a revealing talk from guys we don't hear talk about that stuff a lot.
Yeah, it's a league-wide problem, I think, is what I'm trying to get to. I agree with what you said. I see it too. I wonder if we don't just see it because we're, and Queen's not as old as we are, but I'm wondering if we're not just seeing it because we're fans of a certain age. Like we've seen it played a different way.
Like if we want to talk statistics, I'm not big into statistics, but if you want to talk about it, I can look it up. But I'm more of what's going on in the field, what players are looking like, how they're performing, similar to Jim. So it's one of those things where when I'm down the field, I take in everything. Like and from what I see, I also would like. I think what he can also do a little differently is it just feels right now what I see in September, what I saw yesterday. I don't know if they're maybe changing coaching style up or trying something different. It just looked different. And before I'm thinking, is the coaching style distracting from the fundamentals? And at this point, this late in the season, I'm hoping that maybe they're trying something different.
Something's sure been distracting them from fundamentals, Jim.
Especially when they're leading off first base.
Yeah.
Why don't you take your crack? What would you change that Derek Shelton's done here?
Let me just throw one more thing out there about what Queen said is, and I think maybe he's a younger manager, so maybe he doesn't trust his gut as much. I think you might be seeing a guy who's doesn't have the experience or the leeway to do what he wants as much as he wants to. Also, I want to start off by saying, look, there's only so much Derek Shelton can do with this lineup and this 40 man and going through it and who gets called up and he makes calls to the bullpen, but he's not making the calls to AA and AAA, and he probably gets a little bit of input. That being said, first thing that I'm not a big fan of is sometimes his bullpen usage and the lengths that he lets guys go.
Yeah.
I know there's not a ton of options. We really first started harping on this with David Bednar way back, and then we saw the splits. When he got that first 2 months, he was used very heavily, multi-inning outings.
What do you think of Bobby?
Wasn't
think
the same guy after that. He was not. Now was that happenstance? I don't know, but it lines up with that exact thing. And he's done it with other pitchers too, and they've left guys out there. I think it was View. They left
That's
out
exactly.
there
Yeah, I don't want
for
to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I said, what do you think of you? What happened to you? The poor man was left out there to die on the mound,
yeah,
And
and
he just got
then
DFA'd again.
and he got DFA. The only reason they
right,
DFA, yeah, the only reason they
you
DFA him
know,
was he was supposed to die out there.
you better make sure you're seen as a guy who takes care of his players. Now, maybe
Yeah,
the players understand that it's not all him. I don't know.
right.
Gary, what do you think? Anything that jumps out to you?
Well, first I'll comment on that last one. I think I'd sum that all up with not everybody has to be able to go more than one inning. I think bullpens are built differently today, but
Yep.
I see most teams trying to let their guys go one inning. I don't see
Mm-hmm.
most teams making sure that 7 of the 8 guys back there can go 2 or 3. I think that's wishful thinking. I think if a lot of them could go 2 or 3, they're probably still in the mindset of thinking they might be a starter.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
want that. I want bullpen arms, and I want more Manny Banuelos. I don't want him feeling he has to go 2 innings. I want him to go in and get his 3 outs and be done.
Yeah.
That's I just think that they try to make too many guys do too much. In
Yeah.
a lot of cases, they killed Underwood's arm last
Yep.
year doing the same thing. Will Crow is now on his second year of very heavy usage.
Yeah.
Overloading.
You know, we've seen what happened to Bednar. Where I think DeYoung is somebody that's probably going to come up against that this year. This is the most innings he's ever thrown. They're definitely pushing the envelope with some of these guys. That said, I think the thing that bothers me the most about Shelton's managerial style is the forecasting of the lineups in advance.
I'm glad you got to that because I did not.
The, the thing that drives me nuts about it is it completely erodes your ability to ride the hot hand ever.
Yeah.
You have to leave room for that. You can preordain what your lineups are going to be. Just allow yourself to be flexible. Allow yourself to go, hey, you know what? Rodolfo looked great last night. He got a few hits. We need hits like more than anything right now. Let's
Like
make
air.
sure we
Yeah.
play him again tomorrow. I know
Exactly.
he was scheduled to be off, but
Yeah. If
that's all I'm asking for. It's just like you were talking about not using your gut, Queen.
Yeah.
This goes
That's
right into that.
I.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm. It's it.
Yep.
Is your guy doing well? Is he not injured? Is he not tired? Oh, put him out there.
Yeah, and there's plenty of time for that kind of stuff. Where now, unless a guy comes to you and say and this is the stuff we're not privy to. Every once in a while, someone might
Right.
come to you and say, "Hey, yeah, I need a breather."
Mhm.
But that's not what we're talking about. And I will take it even a step further, Gary, is like, hey, if they're hits, great. What if he just raked 4 at bats? He didn't get a hit, but it looks. I mean, the timing's there. You can see
Sure.
he's swinging a good bat. You wanna sit him the next day? Like guys, hitters, man. When you're hitting and you're seeing the ball, you can't get enough at bats.
Yeah.
You cannot wait to get up there and see pitches.
Mhm.
And then we sit somebody, and that's a good one, Gary. And I'm glad
They
you
were
got to it.
like, he was so close. Why would you do this?
Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think another
So
one is stubbornness.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna say that and I think you're gonna understand where I'm going with it, but I'm gonna use Michael Chavis as my example. They were really stubborn about letting Michael Chavis take over first base for a long time. They kept forcing him to be a platoon player when they didn't have a viable platoon option. And now here we are at the end of the season. We still don't have a viable platoon option. And suddenly they're playing Michael Chavis every day. And amazingly enough,
Yes. Yay.
he's on occasion hitting right-handed pitching. Is he as good against them as left-handers? No.
No.
But he is more effective than playing Josh Van Meter and Yoshi Susugo for months on end.
Oh, we forgot to mention it's a national holiday today.
Yes, it's the day that Van Meter is
yeah, we'd
finally gone.
be remiss if we did not
Cheers.
mention that he is no longer on the major league roster, which that was a bit of a Twitter celebration. So
Yeah.
I
But you
wasn't
know
even
what I
I
mean.
wasn't expecting it, to be honest.
You
I was
guys
not
know what I
expecting
mean with
that.
the stubbornness. They've done this with other players too. Like Castro, they left him at shortstop way too long. It was very clear that that the position was a little bit too above his head. He was making mistakes, mental errors there. Just it wasn't going to happen. And we did it for 26 games.
You think that's above Shelton, or you think that's his call?
I think that Shelton was told that they wanted to see it, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe this
yeah,
shouldn't be a Derek Shelton argument. Maybe this should be more like, hey, team, stop doing this stuff. You know what I mean?
right.
Maybe I
Yeah.
don't care who decided it as much as I don't want to see it anymore.
Well, and this is back to that
Mm-hmm.
Joe Madden thing, which is what he was saying. He was like, when it works, it's the GMs take credit for it. And when it doesn't, then it's the
Yes.
coaching staff that didn't
Yeah.
bring the development out of them and didn't
Right.
and didn't pull that out of them. And he's like, that's a disconnect,
Right.
Yeah.
and I think they do. They feel like the fall guy a lot, that it becomes, and that's an easy perch to sit on
Mm-hmm.
and from and say, well, guess you guys just didn't do your job. We get you these players and they're coachable and you can get them to produce, and you didn't do it.
Yeah, it's a
So
lot
it
more
is back to
complicated.
that.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than
Right.
just pointing at the manager and yelling.
And anyone else got any other suggestions? Because if not, I got another one in the chamber.
For his
I,
coaching style.
I'm good, but Queen, if you have something, if not, Gary, fire away.
He touched on the pitching. He touched on putting up the lineup. We touched on follow your gut, natural instincts.
Maybe a little more fire every once in a while. I tend to think that,
I would like to
you
see some
know,
more fire. I don't think when he goes out there to defend his players, I want to see some fire in those eyes. I don't.
yeah, maybe a little.
Especially like when Reynolds got booted that one
I
night. He
think
should have come out
yes,
and done something,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
I would say let's take it to the actual field a little bit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things they do that really trouble me. They scout, acquire, bring in, and develop small ball style players and refuse to
Mm-hmm.
play any kind of small ball with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
You need to play small ball when you have small ball players. Marcano is not a home run hitter. He's never going to be. He's a doubles to the gap type guy and a speedster.
Mm-hmm.
Use him as such.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like Newman is a Judy hitter. Always going to be a Judy hitter. He's fast as hell. Let him drop bunts every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like let's let these players play to their strengths and let's see what that adds up to.
Do I think some players can develop into different positions, but it has to be realistic? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
that's
there
a
are some
great
players
point.
that are just good at what they do. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
That's a great point, actually, is if it seems a little wild upon first suggestion to people that, are familiar with the game, then maybe it is a little wild. Maybe we don't try Kevin Newman at first base. Not that he can't field the position. I think people always misinterpret that with me as like, of course he can field the position. He's a good fielder. He'll figure it out. I'm
FYI, I
talking,
think that practice went about as good as picking up Zach Collins.
meaning like,
Meaning it didn't go great.
oh, well,
There's a
yeah,
reason
because
Gamble hasn't played there either.
right. And well, I mean, the bottom line is like athletically people can do it, but there's so many things like from the mental side of things over at first base, you got so many different jobs that
Yeah, but
when
that's
you
not what's
never,
bothering you about Newman. What's bothering you about Newman is he doesn't hit like a traditional first baseman in your mind.
well, yeah. I mean, so what I'm saying is like, and that's the first thing that came to mind when I'm saying when we're talking about like, is it realistic? If it's not like, look, like the Tyler Beatty thing, maybe I'll throw that one out there. He came here, it didn't work out for him in San Fran. He finally got a role here. He's not a young pup anymore. I think he's late 20s. He finally seemed comfortable. And then we want to turn around and try to turn him into a starter again. It's like, like those are things that sometimes I think like if it doesn't sound right to me right away, I'm going to question it. Maybe sometimes that's the right way to go about it.
I actually love to be proven wrong on a lot of things. I'd rather be proven wrong than be right when it comes to game calling.
We
All
say
right,
that all the time.
one last criticism, and then we'll move on to our last subject. One more thing. If you're going to believe in analytics, believe in analytics.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to shift everybody, pitch the way you're shifted, for God's
Thank
sake.
you.
If you shift everybody to the left and then pitch a right-hander outside,
what's going to
guess what's going to happen?
Shocking.
It floors me that any numbers would add up to that being right. Yeah. And it's not the pitcher can't execute. The catcher's setting up out there. I'm watching it. He's hitting gloves. You idiots are calling pitches there.
It's like you're seeing into the future. It hasn't even happened yet.
It's crazy. Like that sort of thing. I mean, that's probably not a Derek Shelton thing, but whoever is the field coordinator, come on. Stop. I mean, at least get on the same page with what you're asking the pitchers to do. We've watched the defense decline.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure that they've got worse athletes, really. I just feel like they're just less prepared. The defense just looks in disarray. Guys get the ball now at second base. They don't even know what to do with it.
Allow these guys to live up to their potential, to be the potential that they are. They're professional ball players. Allow them to be that.
Some of them were right. Some of them were professional ball players.
Was it This is how things start to run together. Was it last year, Gary, that they were top 10 in fielding?
2020, they were the best.
Okay.
Last year, they were like middle of the pack towards the top.
Okay.
This year, they're middle of the pack towards the bottom.
Yeah. So there's been a slow, decline there, and what I have always said from the beginning of all this is like, we're not going to out talent everybody. Like we're just never going to be in that position unless things just go on, magically fall into place. But fundamentals, being a good defensive ball club, they've got to have that. They've got to be able to perform and execute the basics. And it hasn't been a pretty year in that regard. That's for sure.
I think we've got a lot of our coaching criticisms out of the way now. I think they really do seriously need to evaluate the coaching staff next year, despite what was said. I think I wouldn't be 100% comfortable if I'm Derek Shelton, regardless of what they said. Lame duck means something.
Yeah.
And for him to not be extended already, that speaks volumes to me about what they think is going on in that dugout.
I think I'm
so I wouldn't be shocked if there was some late breaking news this season, to be honest with you.
I think I'm preaching to the choir when I say that everyone's been wanting a new hitting coach. And
yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'm all about that.
So we've talked about the coaching. I think let's take another quick break. When we come back, I think it's time to maybe start talking about what this team's really going to look like next year. Don't think it's going to be the drastic turnover that I'm seeing some fans wish for. We're back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, Gary, and Queen with you, and we are going to talk about something that I just can't wait, because we're talking about 2023 instead of 2022, because it's time to start putting this season in the rearview mirror a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, 25 games left by the time people hear this podcast. So I mean, we're coming down to the tail end of things.
Right. Now, I'm starting to think fans are expecting a much larger turnover next year than I see coming, Jim. I can start this off if you like, but let's realistically take a look at who is for sure not returning in 2023, who's iffy. Just some
Yeah, go
different
ahead.
things, because the wish list is huge, but I'm not sure 100% of the people out there really understand what a rebuild is and what you're doing with all these kids here. This is not for fun that we're watching Marcano hit under 200 and Jack Sawinski hit under 200, and it also doesn't
Yeah.
mean they're on their way out. So when I look at the roster, it's hard to look past the catchers, right? I mean, like, either of those or both of those guys could not be here next year. I wouldn't say either of them are for sure, but you have to look there. They have to get a free agent catcher, at
Yeah.
least one.
My God, they will not do the delay. As good as delay and Heineman have been, and when I say good, I mean surprisingly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say it. Um,
Surprisingly,
Delay never even hit like this in
performed
college.
surprisingly well.
yeah, for what my expectations were.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's put it that way. But I mean, my goodness, they can't, Gary. They can't go into a season with those two, right?
No, they can't. So you have to figure that there's two spots right there that are probably open.
I do think they might keep one of them.
Yeah.
I think they might too, but Zach
Yeah,
Collins makes me think.
I know. Yeah, Zach Collins being picked up from the Blue Jays, right?
Yeah, because he's
Yeah.
definitely got more pedigree. So
Mm-hmm.
you could see that. But Heineman's been okay. Delay's been okay. I'd be all right with either of them as my backup, hoping that Endy actually winds up being the backup.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely some room there, but either way, there's an opening. Greg Allen's got to be gone,
That's one of
right?
mine. Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Allen's done nothing to me to show that he's somebody you bring back, really.
Queen, what do you
Mine.
think of him?
Uh, every once in a while he appears and he disappears. Is the best way I could describe it. But I don't think he's not fitting the he's not fitting the mold of what I think they're trying to do.
To me, if you're gonna keep somebody like around that you want to be a veteran,
Mm-hmm.
Gamble has outperformed him,
Yeah.
and I think
But
the Gamble people have built up in their minds a little bit too. To me, you want Gamble back. I think what you really are trying to say is that you want a veteran outfielder
right.
to help these kids along. And I would suggest go look at his real numbers. Don't just remember the couple Superman catches. Don't just remember the running with runners in scoring position hits.
Right.
Go look at his actual numbers. He's a below league average player.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and in all sincerity, you should want better than that from this team. Now, if they brought him back, I wouldn't hate it. I love the guy's attitude. I love his hustle. I like the way he is. I think he's a good fit in that room. But Gamble's not a must keep to me. Like, I'd rather them go get somebody that I know is going to give me 2 WAR or something and like hold down a spot,
Well, his contract
and
expires
make
at
it
the end of
hard
the.
for these kids to get past.
Well, Gamma's contract expires at the end of the year, right?
It
Is that correct?
does.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why he was also on the list as a I don't know about him. I think he might be.
I I mean, let me say this: if they're not going to go out and do anything else, I'd like to keep him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if he's below average in the field. He's
Yeah.
not terrible. He's just not as good in the outfield as I think people think he is. He's slightly below average,
Mm-hmm.
and he has hit this year extraordinarily well with runners in scoring position.
Yes.
And he is a veteran. I
Mm-hmm.
do think that he seems to be genuinely well liked and respected in that clubhouse. They are going to need somebody that can kind of fill that role. Um, but yeah, Gary said it. We should, as fans, and no knock on him, we should, as fans, hope for better in that regard. It's that simple with Ben Gamble.
Yeah, and you could make an argument that you should just go with all kids anyway. Like, think about it. We haven't seen Cannon Smith and Jigba, really.
No.
We haven't seen Travis
No.
Swaggerty. Matt Gorski's coming. You know, Matt Frazier could catch fire again next year. And then all of a sudden he's back in the conversation. Cal Mitchell, who knows what's going to happen with him yet? Is Tucupita Marcano an outfielder? Maybe. He might have to be if Castro is a second baseman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or if you keep Kevin Newman, who's a question mark.
Yeah,
what do we do with Kevin Newman? Jim, I know what you want to do is get rid of him. But no, I mean, in all sincerity, I also know that you're able to put it aside and think about what he's done. He's a right-handed bat. He's looked better since he came back from the IL. He's actually making non-Kevin Newman-like contact on occasion. And standing up straighter, taking better at bats, actually taking some walks, which is weird for him.
Yeah.
And
honestly, I mean, if he was going to be back in a totally reserve role where he can spell the middle infielder guys, that's what I would like to see. I think that fits him really well. So am I a Kevin Newman guy? No, but that doesn't mean I can't foresee a guy that makes decent contact and is a good fielder still not being a fit on a ball club.
Yeah, he could still be utilized.
So
yeah.
So I mean, but I don't want to see him getting 300 at bats next year either. Like I can't get on board with that.
Right.
So
the best argument I can make for Kevin Newman as to why he will be back, at least as far as my guess would be, I would guess he'll be back. I think he'll be pretty cheap in ARB1.
Mm-hmm.
B,
yeah, that'll be interesting to see, actually.
I don't know who the hell else plays shortstop if O'Neal Cruz gets hurt. It can't be Castro.
You don't want to do that to Castro again.
You can't do it to Castro. I don't want to see Castillo.
No.
I don't want to see Bay. Bay's not really a shortstop. No. Trust me, if you really watched him play, I know it's listed on his bio.
Yeah.
If you really watched him play, trust me, you know he's not a shortstop.
Yep.
There's a hole there to me if you don't have somebody like a Kevin Newman. I think without shifting next year, they have got to have somebody that actually can play that position more than ever.
Yeah. So you should probably keep him.
Yeah, I don't argue with that.
Unless you're willing to move Hayes to short and put Castro at third.
I am not.
I don't know how I feel about that. I just took in a breath like, no.
Well, I'm saying I'm trying to throw out all conceivable options because I do think he's probably a bubble player, but that's why he's a bubble player because I think that's his saving grace is that nobody else has emerged as a capable shortstop yet. And I don't think Peguero's ready. And I don't think Nick Gonzalez could handle the position well either.
Well, do you guys want to roll into the pitchers? Because I mean, there was another name good stuff there too.
There was another name I had. Contract expire. Roberto Perez.
Yeah, Roberto Perez is a free agent as well.
He's a free agent,
and obviously everything will kind of fall into or out of place with that. Sounds like he wants to come back. Sounds like the Pirates are interested, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'd like to have him back if he's reasonable enough.
Yeah.
I think he might. I don't know what he'll get, but I would think it'd be something that there might be some room to work with there.
It'll be less than 5. There's your
yes.
Yeah, there's your answer. So, okay, Roberto Perez, you want to talk pitching? You got to start with Bryce Wilson, right?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be here.
In any capacity? Because I could see him being a bullpen guy.
I could see him being a bullpen guy, but I'm not confident in him.
I really hate to say this because I think it sounds so dismissive of being in the majors when it's really not, and all these guys have, just to get there and be able to play. But like, is he a mop-up guy? I mean, he might be. To quote Caddyshack, the world needs ditch diggers too.
It's
So,
true. Yeah.
I mean, I
Well,
just, today I looked at his numbers today. 56 strikeouts in 86 in the third innings pitched.
hmm,
I mean, there is just no way in Major League Baseball in today's game that can be acceptable. It,
yeah. Don't we have
it's
someone else going to
whoa.
be a ditch digger?
Well, we've had plenty of candidates for that lately, but
hmm.
so but that would be it. It would be
Well,
something like to
here's
me.
another ditch digger for you then, Queen.
Okay.
Zach Thompson.
Zach
To me,
Thompson.
he's the epitome of somebody that I think should be in the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember me screaming
I like
about Will
Thompson.
Crow last year
Yeah.
that I wanted him to be a bullpen arm for this exact reason. I think Zach Thompson fits that category very well as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I
I
think
like
he'll be
Zach
back, but I don't
Thompson.
think he'll be
Yeah.
a starter.
It's
No,
disappointing too because I'm looking at his career numbers versus his regular season numbers this year. He he he's gotten worse across the board, and that was after having a pretty good stretch in there for a while.
He's another
So
guy too who's well exceeded his innings that
yeah.
he's ever
Yeah.
thrown.
Seems to
So
be a pattern.
yes. So, and COVID really screwed a lot of things up with pitchers. And I just feel like for
Yeah.
some reason the Pirates have managed it worse than everyone else because I
they're number
don't
Or
one.
well, I
They're
don't
number one.
see this same
they're
kind
number
of
one.
I don't see this same kind of issue elsewhere. That's why it just troubles me.
Yeah. So just I say Wilson not I say not back. I will say Thompson definitely back in a
Yes.
bullpen role is how I will
Yes.
go with it right now
I
I would
agree.
agree with that.
today. Yeah.
Yep.
We got to hop back over the fence here and talk about another position player because he
Uh,
just got called up again. Hoy Park. It's his second year here, his second full year of getting sporadic looks.
Hmm.
I would have to imagine with all of the depth they have in the infield and all of the options, he's got to be just about done.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I could.
You
I
Yeah.
agree
think
with that,
so.
Jim?
Yeah, like, hey, he's got a month here to change people's minds, and whatnot. But a lot would have to happen. I just think with the amount of young guys that they have coming up, I just can't. I don't foresee where there's an opportunity for him.
I'm going to go ahead and bet
Right.
he gets Van Meters at bats, so he hits maybe 8 times a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So this might not be the opportunity there, and even if there was, do I expect him to just, make me do a 180 on him? No.
Right.
So I'd say no.
Yeah.
Tyler Beatty.
Oh, I
He's a
don't
bubble guy for
know.
me because I thought he was good in the bullpen. I don't like him as a
I don't-
starter.
Yes. I don't
Did they
know.
mess him up enough, Queen, that we don't want to see him back at all, or do we want to allow him to come back
I
in
don't
to the
know on that
bullpen?
one. I've been thinking about. I can't tell. I cannot. Because I see the good, and then I see a bad, and I can't figure out if he's going to be. I think he'll be here next year. Um, but I don't. That's a
I
tough
do.
think he'll
one.
be invited to camp for sure, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's going to make it out of camp. I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
To be
He
honest
would
with you,
Me
have to
too.
have he would have to have a strong camp, and I do think that they did him kind of wrong with what they did with him. Trying to convert him back into a starter.
Yeah.
He just did not look comfortable.
No.
And I think his stuff plays more toward being in a bullpen role and with his sinker and being able to throw hard for an inning or two
yeah,
rather than what they were doing with him. So
Well,
I'm
we'll
with
see.
you there.
We'll see at camp, right? We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah,
I think we're going to have to.
I think he's somebody that has to perform well in camp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if he survives the 40-man crunch, which we're
Right.
going to talk about in an
Yeah.
upcoming episode because that's going to be gross, Jim. And I've really got to do my research on that a little bit, and we got to get closer to the end of the season. Miguel Yajure is somebody that interests me because he's still kind of in the mix for maybe being a starter at some point. They're using him in the bullpen. He's had spotty performance. The velocity has just never come back to what it was when he first got here. His stuff is good, but it's not so good that he can get by without a fastball that really plays. I personally am kind of to the point where you see what he can do in the bullpen this last month, and if it's not good enough, it's not good enough.
The theme of this year's bullpen, it seems to be, is I don't know, we'll see.
Well,
hey, a lot about our bullpen.
I think that's how you get to the bullpen sometimes too, right? So he's another guy that I think if you look at it, and this is another reminder sometimes of when you get guys in your system and how much they can fluctuate as far as what people think that they're going to be, and he's definitely gone through the stages of very promising to not so promising to I'm not sure what we have here. Gary, you touched on something with him is just, man, if you're not going to have a fastball in today's game, and this has really been the case throughout baseball. It's just accentuated now, which is if you're not going to have a fastball, man, your other pitches and your location has got to be totally on point. And he's just not that fine-tuned guy. So another guy that let's see how he does the rest of the way. And then he would get an opportunity in training camp. But I'm down on him. And I, again, hope he proves me wrong, but I'm down on him right now.
I always hope that they can do better than I'm forecasting. But here's an interesting one for both of you because I think this one is actually kind of controversial. And I think he gets unfairly treated a lot. Dwayne Underwood Jr. He seems to be his own worst enemy, I would say, on the mound. His stuff is arguably more wicked than almost anybody in that bullpen. But he just goes through spells where he can't control it. And when he goes through those spells, man, can he give up some runs quick and get himself into some trouble. But he has also eaten a ton of innings. And his ERA is always surprisingly lower than you think it is when you watch him pitch. He's so hard for me to decide on because of that. I tend to think he'll be back, if only because he's one of the few people that the team management actively seems to believe in all the time. But I'm not 100% sure that he should be a lock.
If he gets some control, that'd be great.
Yeah, because his stuff's sick.
Oh yeah, nasty. Love it.
4 or 5 pitches. Velocity's been great this year. You would think he'd be more effective. He seems to have an absolute dislike for pitching a clean inning. I don't know. I don't know if he's just like decided like that's too easy. So
I call that Chad Poolitis.
Yeah, man.
Throw a little razzle dazzle in there.
Right, like I'm bored with clean innings. So let me spice it up a little bit here. But I would like you guys have said. I mean, he's got the ability, and he does eat innings, and every team needs that, no matter if you're good or bad. And I still see them in a position where they're going to need it next year.
Yeah, and I'm not, and I think too we're probably not thinking about some other guys that are going to be pushing their way onto the team, like Joe Jocks and Nick Mears, potentially Baby Thor Cederland is a guy who, coming off Tommy John, might be able to make his way up here and really help and impact the bullpen. We don't have David Bednar right now, so you kind of can't see the mix as it's meant to be. I don't want to get into talking about the Eric Stouts of the world or Johan Ramirez because I think they wouldn't be here if they didn't have to be right now.
Well,
Yeah.
let me throw. Yeah, I agree with you. But here's two names: Manny Banuelos
Yep.
and Dylan Peters. Right? We
Yeah.
kind of we kind of forget about him because he's been hurt so much. But what do you guys think of those two?
Well, Manny's really
I,
grown on me personally. I think after that initial debut against the Yankees,
Which I was
he
there for.
he's
mm-hmm.
been he's been pretty hard to ignore. Actually,
I like
stuff
him.
really plays. He looks he looks like he's kind of gotten his control issues under him a little bit. He had one game where he kind of blew up and walked the bases loaded.
Yeah.
Um, about a week and a half ago or so. Aside from that, he's been really, really effective. That said, Sam Howard has done that before as a lefty out of this bullpen, and I like Manny. He'll be back next year, I'm sure, competing. I hope they go and get some more because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's healthy for a bullpen to have one lefty, and
No.
I don't think it's healthy when Eric Stout is your second.
Mm-hmm.
It may be the reason they're both back. Quite honestly, is that they're lefties. Unless something drastically changes in the off season, they still need lefties.
Yeah.
So
Nothing's changed.
right. So I think, and Peters, before he got hurt, I mean he looked really good. So I think they'll give them both an opportunity.
Yeah,
I'd like
Dylan
to see. I'd like
Peters.
to see. I'd like to see more of Peters. I.
Yeah, Dylan Peters. Like you watched this team a while too, Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Does he not remind you of Stephen Brault? Because
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
okay,
Okay.
his
Yes.
stuff has no earthly reason why it should get anybody out,
Yeah.
but it
It's.
does.
It does.
And that's why Dylan Peters is one of those guys who, for the entire span of his career, is going to fight for every opportunity he gets because nobody's ever going to give it to him based on how fast he can throw it or how much
No,
his ball breaks or anything like that.
He's got some black magic going on.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Peters, those guys are the guys that in 5 years from now you still see him somehow pitching somewhere on a
Yeah.
major league team.
Yeah.
And you're just like, but lefties, and if you can show some ability to get guys out, you find your way back on a roster every once in a while.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like we've pretty much worked our way through the team, and we've talked mostly about the bullpen because that's where you're going to see most of the change. I don't think you're going to see it on the field. I think this same mix of players for the most part, minus
Mm-hmm.
like Ben Gamel or somebody like that, minus Greg Allen. Maybe you can swap Diego Castillo for somebody that's here. Maybe Endy makes it. Who knows? But
Yeah.
this is pretty close to what it's going to be. And where do we really want them to spend, folks? I think starting pitching, bullpen, catcher, first base. I think that's your pain points. Because Michael Chavis is the only guy we didn't talk about. He's back, right? I
I
think
love
even if they
Chavis.
get a first
You know
baseman, he's
that.
back.
Oh, I love Chavis.
But he's another one I looked at the other day. He's actually been a negative WAR player. He has not been even league average, Jim. And
He's
I've
just a
watched him
tick
all year,
below,
and
and
that's not the
yeah,
way I would define him.
yeah, he's just a tick below an OPS to league average. Um, but I think if you got him um, in the right situation, um, where you could, if they could look, if they're not going to go out and find a full-time first baseman and invest in that, then get him someone that he can platoon with, that you can accentuate their strengths off of one another, and then
Agreed.
hopefully you see more productivity out of that.
Yeah, you put those
So
two players together and you make one good player.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and let's face it, the bar at first base for the Pirates to get some production out of is not high. Like it's just let's just get something that has a pulse over there as far as full season of production.
Well,
So
it goes back full circle to the very first thing we talked about, where you can maybe bring back a Ben Gamel, but shouldn't we as fans want better? I
Yes.
think we should.
We
And
should.
like Michael Chavis is a decent player. He's surprised me. I'm happy that he did as well as he did. He worked as hard as anybody to become a decent first baseman, and I'm very happy he did, because if he didn't, I can't even imagine how bad our record would be.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we want better than that? I think so. Shouldn't we? Like, if you can get somebody, get
Well,
somebody.
as a fan, you get attached to certain players. And I think that's the thing, is that you like certain players, you get attached to them, sentimental value. I see something in Chavis that I just really connect with, and I just, it's just, I think he's got something.
Yeah, he's
And
engaging. He's a
yeah,
a smart kid. He's
yeah,
quick to whip with his wit,
yeah.
and he's a really good PR
That's
player.
like I said, but granted, it could be because it's a fan thing. You
Yeah,
latch, it just a
But I
player could not be great, and you're like, oh, I love that guy.
sure, sure, and I do think he's going to be back solely. You know, it's kind of like the lefty situation is.
Hmm.
Um, First base. You got to have someone over there. He had a couple weird snafus over there? Yeah, but for the most part, he's played it pretty well.
well, now
You
he's
know?
got Cruz throwing him change ups. So
But poor man,
like,
that poor man.
Yeah,
Cruz has just decided, like, because honestly, they needed to work with him on throttling back on his throws to first,
I
and he
bet.
has. You can tell he has. You can see his gears grinding. He's got the ball, and he's like, nope, nope, nope,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he
yeah.
he puts on the wild thing glasses. He throws the ball nice and easy over
Yes,
there.
yes,
Well, the other day he didn't skipped it in, and Chavis was like prepared for that
yes.
fastball, and you could tell he got crossed up
Oh.
like Van Meter catching,
Mhm,
and like
mhm.
it was a
yeah,
frightening moment in that game.
If I was Chavis, I'd be waking up every night going, ah, oh, sorry, just another dream. I'm sorry. Just, oh.
yeah.
Oh
You don't.
man,
I tell you what, you got a first baseman's mitt. There's a nice big web in it. You want to be catching Cruz in that webbing. You don't want it
Yeah.
anywhere near that palm. That's for sure. So, but let me just throw this in there about there's a lot of guys we didn't discuss because we know they're going to be back, and I want to see them get that full spring training in and just that normalcy, and
Fresh start.
yeah, and letting them just knowing that they're going to be on the team, probably starting, and I'm talking about the Castros or the Cruzes of the world,
right?
and just letting them
Gel.
develop and gel and not have to worry about all that. Am
Hmm.
I getting called up? Am I getting sent down?
Hmm.
And that people are human beings. There'll be a comfort level with that. I hope it pays off.
And they always say, the biggest time of improvement for a baseball player is in the off season.
Hmm.
You tend to come back a different player most of the time if you put the work in. And I
Yeah.
think we saw this spring an example of a player that didn't put the work in. Bryce Wilson came in out of shape, arm wasn't ready, paid the price all season long. He took a step back from what he was after being acquired in 2021. I think he'll probably ultimately pay for this with his job, because the Pirates didn't forget that, you
Yeah.
know? So if you put the work in, you come back, you can be better. And I think there's a lot of that that's going to happen too. A lot of these players that we're not even thinking about are going to come back different,
I always
a
look
little bit
forward to a
more
new
beefed
season.
up.
Yeah. I always look forward to a new season. It,
It's no di- it's no different than like, even in college you see guys come back and they look a lot different from freshman to sophomore year or
yeah.
sophomore to junior year. I mean, like, there's that maturity and that development and that catching your breath almost and then going back into it, having learned some things and being able to rely on things. And I'm hoping we see that kind of jump next year with some of these guys.
I mentioned that
Yeah.
specifically, that aspect of things, the improvement of the individual players, because a lot of people are going to automatically assume you return a team that's very similar to what you're working with right now in
Mm.
2022. how can you expect different results with those same players the next year? You know, I just think a lot of people don't take into account that they will improve. Some of them will improve. That's the
Yeah.
point. And some of the people pushing behind them are going to improve, and they will make their presence felt.
Sure.
And there's just an evolving nature to it that I think a lot of people don't look at. They're going to see O'Neal Cruz hit 208 or whatever he finishes with this year. So, of course, next year he's going to hit 208, right? And they'll just add up his stats and, oh, he's going to hit 30 sometime around. I don't expect him to hit 208. I'll be disappointed if that's what he is as a player.
Oh.
Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for now, it shouldn't
Yeah.
matter.
For now,
that
it's
much.
okay. But like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't think that he's going to rest on that and be happy
No.
with it. No.
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 You
No.
can't think Brian Hayes was happy with his season.
No.
So
No.
there are definitely things that are going to get better in that aspect. But also, I think we've identified some areas where this team has got to invest. And if they don't, yeah, I think we rightly will have some questions for them. And Jim and I will be here to deliver negative show after negative show, making sure we point out what they should and shouldn't do. And then they'll listen or they won't, and it'll be fun. So we're going to talk all off season about that stuff.
more like a tutorial.
Right.
We'll do that instead of negative.
So great talk, everybody.
Yeah.
Really had a good time. Queen, thank you so much for joining us.
Besides, and you'll come back at some point, right?
Oh, if you'll have me.
All right.
Absolutely.
Good deal.
First things first. Where can people find you besides the third base line at the games?
Okay, so I am on Twitter. I am active on Twitter. Usually during the games on the television. Other than that, if I'm at the game, I am not available. But I am on Twitter at PGH Pirate Queen, and I am on Instagram at Pirate Queen Banshee, but not really that active on that one. Mostly just the pictures. But you can find me on Twitter if you want to have a great discussion about baseball at PGH Pirate.
Awesome. And Jim, how do people get a hold of you, brother?
Yep, Twitter too. So at JimStamm22 or for the city _412. Pirates, Steelers, and Penguins, and Pitt.
All right, awesome. And I'm Gary, of course. You can get a hold of me however you always do on Twitter, GaryMO2007. Also, look for the H2P podcast every Sunday morning here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And I'd like to say goodbye again to Queen, but her video just dropped off, so I'm just going to say it one more time.
She literally could not wait to get off with us.
She made it the whole show.
I mean, can't say that I blame her.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, Ben, take it away, brother.
Yes, your butt.